Well, fellas, members of the Pivot family got in trouble. Our boy Nick Cannon and Cam Newton, they both invited Dr. Cheyenne Bryant on their show, and they were talking about having multiple children with multiple women. And Dr. Bryant told Nick he deals in a low-functioning way with low-functioning women. And also told Cam Newton he is fostering these broken homes with his thought process of not wanting to marry, but wanting more children. When you hear sort of her take on it, Chan, what are your thoughts?
First thing you think of is that's not a deadbeat dad. Those are two guys.
Yep.
The Cam thing, he's buying houses. These kids are well taken care of. But then as you hear her talking, you talk about it like being fathers ourselves, kids aren't goldfish. You can't throw them in a bowl, put some food on top and they'll be okay. You need to be there for them. And I heard her talking to Cam. Doc was talking to Cam, was like, hey, you're missing time with them. They don't always have you. We know working. You're going to miss soccer games, football games, pageants, father-daughter dances, and things of that nature. So I see what she's saying, and I would agree with the fact that I don't know if it's a broken home what it used to be, but as you see there, if you're not a father active in the house, that is still a child raised in a single parent home, So that's the thing that I really took from it. And I actually learned when she was talking to Nick and talking to Cam, I learned about that. And being a father, I see it the way that she sees it, but I also see that Cam and Nick would say the old school way. Them kids got a roof over their head, they well fed, they in private school. What more do you need? You need a father in that house. Sometimes you need somebody to wake you up in the morning.
Yeah.
I think right now in my head, I hear Q, Papa was a Rolling Stone. It looks crazy, the dynamics of it all. But I do want to commend those guys for trying. You know, they try to be there. They do their damnness to make sure they're able to provide for those children. I don't condone the circumstances. Now, I understand the interview in which Dr. Bryant approached it and her comments. And I think the dialect between two respectful parties, two respectful entities, now you're able to start a conversation in which our community, more than any other community, needs to understand whether you're gonna do it or not. At least the conversation is there, the message is there. You hear about the statistics when they talk about single family homes, single women, and who's leading in those categories? Black women. So I think as Black men, we have to do better and try and bring those numbers down, but we also have to try our best to be there as much as we can in the event that does happen. And again, I think Nick's a wonderful father, doing the best that he can. Same with Cam. I guess the one invaluable thing that we all go by is time. Like, we don't have enough time in the day. And I think even Nick said that on our show. It's sort of cheating the kids a little bit, I think, in a certain type of way. But I will never question those guys for providing, because some guys don't. Some guys just don't care to be there in their children's life. But regardless of the circumstances, which again, I don't condone that sort of behavior, I still think there's a message at least in them trying to be there for their children.
Yeah, I think the dialogue between Dr. Bryant and Nick Cannon and Dr. Bryant and Cam Newton are very important dialogues. I think you're talking about two men that at least understand they have the means to support multiple children and multiple women. I think the deeper dive into the dialogue is the acceptance and the willingly creating quote unquote broken homes. You mentioned our community and the number of broken homes and the number of single mothers. And some of that is built on irresponsibility. It's built on carelessness. Like, I can speak for myself, and it's a conversation that looks different for me. I had two different kids by two different women at the age of 21, right? And at that time, all I knew from parenting and about parenting is that I saw my dad all the time because he lived with me, because he was married to my mother. And I knew I didn't want children, whether it was my daughter at that time or my son, to not be used to seeing me or to have to turn to another man and call him father or accept him as their father because I wasn't there. That was important to me. I didn't walk into those situations with their mothers at the time and say, I want to make this baby. I was careless. right? I wasn't focused or intentional about not doing it. But then I had to make a decision. You can't make that decision, and it isn't to, if this happens unknowingly or because of irresponsibility, right away say, I'm going to marry this woman if it's a bad situation, because you don't want that kid to grow up in that either. But I do understand when she's saying you're making these decisions to create houses, not homes, right? One is what you can afford based on your wealth. And the other one is what you can afford based on the amount of time God gives you, which is not infinite.
Right.
I commend both men for being willing to have the conversation. I think there's always going to be a level of defense there, but she was being honest in that, like, they're functioning in their lowest functioning selves. When we are aware of that, now we accept that. And so it's saying that, hey, this ideology is fucked up.
Right.
It's not only messed up, but it's now going to create a generation of children and of women that can also be messed up based on a decision I knowingly made. You can be aware of that, and if you accept that, that's fine. But in accepting it, we can't ignore some of the issues that it can create.
Right.
And when we are in our lowest functioning self in every decision, I can say this for myself, there are times where you think, am I even doing the marriage right? Am I doing the parenting right? Would it have been better if I did try to be a father outside the home? And I would have to guess that if you decide to have 8 different babies with 3 different mothers, there are times you say, man, did I do that right as well? I don't think life is about perfection, but I do think it's about perspective. And I do believe that Dr. Bryant provided very important perspective for 2 very wealthy men that do have to understand time is something we can't buy more of.